of my life in a way. This is the street that is going to be the most important street I've ever walked up. And I didn't know why at the time. And on this walk, hopefully, I'll tell you all about that as well. Because what happened was I was being led to the Crossbones graveyard. And at the time, I didn't even know it was a graveyard. It was like a building site. Winchester Goose was a prostitute, a medieval sex worker. They were quite extraordinary, though, their history, because in this area, these women were licensed by the church, by the Bishop of Winchester, who effectively was their protector. So it's a very strange meeting of the sacred and the profane that endured for more than 500 years in this area. So it is a fascinating thing. It was this character, the goose, it was as if she couldn't wait for me to find her. She just came looking and came bursting out in verse. I was born a goose of Southwark. The other end of this street was the Clink prison, one of the 5 prisons I mentioned to you in this area. And around the Clink was one of the 5 liberties, the liberty of the Clink. A liberty lay outside the law of the City of London, which had very strict rules on drinking and gambling. Obviously the world's oldest profession was banned there, but also theatre. And in those days, theatre, competition. Back in those days, theatre and prostitution were regarded as really as much the same sort of thing. Actors were really not reputable in any sense of the word. The name Crossbones was a later name for what had been called the Single Women's Churchyard, and single women, yet another euphemism for the Winchester geese. Despite being licensed by the church to ply their trade, they were denied Christian burial. Remember, in those days, to be buried in unconsecrated ground meant you would go to hell. So it was a terrible fate for these women. In the 19th century, when Dickens lived at the bottom of this street, this was the paupers' burial ground. So for all the poorest people in the area, as I say, an area where the police wouldn't come down, an area where child mortality was incredibly high. So of the 15,000 estimated burials here at Crossbones, more than half of them are children. Anyone who was too poor to afford a proper burial would end up here. And you can see this on some of these memorial ribbons. Some of the people, it actually says gratis. That means a pauper's burial, that they got it free. Others you'll see they died in the workhouse or even were found dead in the street. And it was the 23rd November 1996, I found myself writing this strange poem in which the true author, the goose, claims to have been buried here and that she has returned to tell her story and to restore this place. And Crossbones is a place where we do like to remember people not by their label, but by a sense of who they were as human beings. And clearly all of those women were somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, somebody's lover or wife or whatever. But most of all, they were themselves with their own potential. And this is what we try to honour here.